tell my friends stand by me only if I'm right. I come out in triple darkness just to see the light. If I say it once, I guarantee I say it twice. If they want me, I ain't going out without a fight. In my dreams, I'm a killer, but for God, man. Try to play it cool, but it's getting hard, man. Rolling with the real and death to all the frauds, man. Not too many of me, yeah, it's kinda hard, man. In my room, sitting in my room. Know they waiting on me and I'm coming soon. Never been a sellout, never been a coon. Y'all be on the camera acting like I'ma show them how I true and independent get it. Whole game changed by the time I'm finished with it. We about to get this business handled in a minute.
Welcome to the B2M Crew podcast. We're 5 men who have been friends for over 40 years and who have a combined 12 sons out of 13 children between us. We've been also collectively married for over 100 years, and we got together to do this podcast and share with you some conversations and support we provided for one another over our journeys as fathers, parents, and brothers. And so we're glad to invite you all into these conversations. We're broadcasting here from the Code Building in downtown Charlottesville, Virginia, which is a wonderful space for business people, entrepreneurs seeking office space with wonderful amenities. Great climate here in the building on the great downtown mall in Charlottesville. We're glad to have them as one of our partners, and also brought to you by Win Productions, who executive produces this podcast, opening a brand new studio in the Atlanta area. So for those of you who travel to the Atlanta area or who have friends and acquaintances down there, please contact them for your production needs. I'm over here joined by my man, John J.G. Yates.
What up, though?
Talik Chill Win, our brother Waukee, the world's ambassador, and J. Moo over there on the end holding us down. What's going on today, fellas?
What's
up, bro?
Hey, man, another day. As they say, another day, another dollar.
Let's chop it up.
Hey, we're going to talk about something that's very, very important, not only to us, but in our community, which is the concept of faith. And what we taught our children about faith, spirituality, philosophy, or otherwise. As you all know, we live in a world where having faith in something is very important. And so just going to chop it up about what we shared with our young people in terms of faith. And I'm going to start off with our brother prophet over there, brother J. Moo. How important was it to you in terms of conversations about faith, spirituality with your children? How did you parent them through that?
Well, first I'd like to share my experience coming up, of course, raised as a Baptist, being baptized from my mother's, home church or community church back in the day at what, 6, 7, I guess.
Shout out to East Hand.
To East Hand. And then, of course, not understanding what that really was about. You know what I mean? Being baptized, dipped in it was some creek or something back in the behind the church and whatnot, not really understanding that. And then I guess coming into at least the appreciation for attending church and whatnot. In our teenage years, my man Waukee, our mothers would have us attend
First Baptist on Main Street.
Pastor Only, yes. Pastor Only was the pastor at that time, and we were what 16, 17? Yeah. And so that brother, man, I really appreciated his delivery of the word, and I will never forget the way he opened was, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be exceedingly glad." So, and the brother, I think he was from the DC area or what have you.
Reverend
but
Only.
I really appreciated that brother, man, until, unfortunately he passed. And so from that, in high school, it was just, just kind of, freestyling, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't until we finished high school. Well, actually, I take that back, because this was a question brought up in our study group at the mosque when it came to explaining when I first accepted Islam and such. And so I the first influence was my man MC Peace, Greg Truzzi.
MC Peace.
Peace. True.
Yeah. We were out, chilling, trying to find some, party or whatever to get into and whatnot. And he was playing the Minister Farrakhan in the tape deck of, my vehicle or what have you. And I was like, man, who is this? And he was like, that's Minister Farrakhan. I was about, I'm like, wow, okay, didn't think much of it. And again, that was probably our senior year or so.
Man, Peace, get that mess off.
Yeah, that
was me.
Hey, but real, and aside though, Peace is a pastor now, right?
Is he? I'm not sure, man.
I think he's a minister now.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, wow. But so that was that. But at the time, I didn't, of course, grasp it as I did when we then, I believe, after in the summer,
maybe just like a year later, maybe.
Yeah, not long after that. We were, I think after we was playing ball somewhere, and then y'all was telling me about the brothers that were around, Brother Elishama and Brother Khalil, and them just, dropping the books and stuff. And so I was like, wow. But you also, when you went off to JUCO,
right,
and you had your little brush with the 5% piece. And we was talking about that a little bit, and you gave me Bilal.
My name was Evolution back then, brother.
Evolution.
Yeah. And you gave me Bilal or whatever, something like that, or something like anyway. Oh, but no, okay. Though this is kind of off topic, but Waki, I won't forget when we was in 10th grade or something like that, I think.
11th grade. 11th grade. Miss Garnett class.
My name is Abdul Shamir from the Islamic Kingdom.
We was being stupid.
He was being.
I was Abdul Shamir. He was Ralik Muhammad.
Yeah.
We made this up in 11th.
Just made it up. And I know that's off topic a little bit, but so back to then.
Came full circle.
Yeah, it's a while, isn't it? Then after you know what I'm saying? It was funny because you dropping a little something on me here and there, and I was like, man. I recall one time I was like, put these cigarettes away, throw a whole pack of cigarettes out the window or something crazy. I was like, I'm done with you, or whatever. And then that
if anybody knew James back then, that was big.
He been smoking since he was 12.
Oh gosh. So but then it was, and it's funny also because before our thing with the basketball and they asked that, I was struggling with the whole thing. I'm like, what is truth and whatnot? So I was trying to study my Bible, this, that, and the third, and reading through who begat this one, and just finding that kind of frustrating. And then I was just, what is truth? So then about when I was just dealing with that within myself, that's when about 3 weeks later or so, we did as far as meeting up with the brothers and them showing me all the books by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then there was a question and answer video of the minister that they played. Man, I was like, whoa, this guy just off the cuff, just answering just stuff, some of the questions that I had, with myself about what is truth, this and the third. And so from that day on, man, I was like, yo, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And so, fast forward, ended up going down the state for school. We linked up, Chubb, and they had a study group and all of that. And so for me, it was at around the age of 19, 20, that I decided and accepted Islam. So as far as for my children, I just, from that example, from learning that and knowing that, I just tried to be the best example I could be of righteous conduct, if you will, and spiritual. I didn't want to per se, I guess I look back as far as my youngest anyway, which I had the most, the most time from and influence on. I wasn't gonna kind of raise him in the sense of in the nation, in the way, whereas it could be equally as kind of detrimental as to not allow him to expose, to know things of the world. And then have to, I kind of wanted to do
not
it
the same level of restriction.
Right. And so, just by example, I tried to lead as far as just, again, with righteous conduct. But what I tried to teach him at a young age, though, was because he was, heavily influenced on the Marvel and heroes and that sort of thing. So at 3-4 years old, if I tried to give him a firm understanding of right versus wrong or good versus evil, this, that, and the third, I associated with heroes and comics and that. I was like, listen, do you want to be a hero or do you want to be a villain? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I tried to help and instill. He's a hero, and so you know what I mean. So I tried to put that as the foundation of at least him having a sense of moral code and trying to do just do right. One of the things that I lean on from Minister Farrakhan was, how we bicker and go over as far as like labels and get too caught up in label of Christianity, Islam, or Muslim, Christian, Jew, or whatever. And he says he used the example of mathematics. And he said, what we do, and I'm paraphrasing, what we do is we get around like children. Say, for instance, my mother taught me 5 and 2 is 7. He said, my mom taught me 3 and 4 is 7. Well, my mom taught me 7 and 0 is 7. We get together as children without the understanding of the principle of mathematics. We think, all of us, have our own view and the other one is wrong. When in truth, we're coming to the same truth and conclusion. And so I try to lean on that as well as the so-called golden rule. You'll find in any faith that expression with the golden rule of, within Christianity anyway, is that do unto others as you have them do unto you. Mm-hmm. And you'll find a similar adage tied into all forms of religion and whatnot. So again, I tried to leave that open with regards to raising, again, my youngest, but all my children, as far as being an example of what I thought to be righteous conduct and to kind of live your life on values and a code of really just trying to be upright and not doing people wrong and dirty. And so pretty much that. And then it's interesting because now, just about a few weeks, maybe a month or so ago, K-Mood came, with regards to some of our conversations throughout the years. And then as he had gotten older, he's kind of like, I kind of understand it now, Papa, with regards to the concept of Allah or God. Mm-hmm. And his influence, surprisingly though, is some show on Netflix though. You know what I mean? Some adult cartoon that gave him that epiphany in some sense. So it's like, it was kind of weird how he kind of came to understanding with regards to that, throughout time, the first God and of creation and so on and so forth in history. He just kind of came into an epiphany recently from the oddest, of influence, in that being some adult cartoon on Netflix. Midnight something, I forgot what it's called.
James, so wait a minute. I'm gonna be like Shaq on TNT. That's 15 minutes. That's 15
4, 3,
minutes.
1. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. 1, 2, not back to 1. Man, what are you doing, man? That's 15 minutes.
Man,
A lot of the times, man, the people that watch the podcast say, "You don't hardly ever say anything."
I was gonna say the same thing.
I know that's why I had to say it.
Everybody say he don't talk enough.
Right. Hey James, let me ask you. So what I hear is you give 3 examples of your exposure to religion, or God, or faith, right? Mm-hmm. So your mother's church early on versus we becoming teenagers in a very charismatic Reverend Only, who drew a lot of young people to First Baptist, right? And that wasn't our home church, but we all been to First Baptist many times, then to the minister, right?
It was my home church.
It was your home church?
Mm-hmm. That's why I was baptized.
I didn't even know Joaquin ever went to
Hold
church.
on, I thought y'all was Catholics. Y'all was Catholics on the...
Yeah, my mama was, but when I chose,
okay.
I chose First Baptist.
Okay.
My mama went to Catholic church.
Gotcha.
Mama, grandma, everybody.
And then she came over there with us too.
For a little while.
Yeah.
Then she back at the Catholic church.
Right.
Okay.
But anyway.
Reverend Only would have built the first mega church in Virginia and in Charlottesville if he would have stayed.
Right.
He was phenomenal. I'm just asking how does it affect what you decide to instill in your kids versus not? You feel me? Like your mama's church, that experience, in the country church to the church in Little City versus the minister.
Well, I would actually also have him like when I was with his mom, I'd let her, we'd go to church. I would support and go, with regards to
her dad a pastor?
Yeah, her dad's a pastor. Right?
Hey, so you a Muslim, you married a Baptist preacher's daughter.
Right. Yes, sir.
Interfaith marriage.
My
Yeah,
second marriage. No, but
Well,
yes.
hold on, let's get back on John too, because what was it called? What was y'all's church name? Cobham Baptist?
Zion Hill Baptist.
Zion Hill,
That's
yeah.
right.
Reverend
Zion
Johnson, right?
Hill.
So, John, especially, in the Cobham greater metropolitan area,
That's right.
what was your experience? Because I know even still to this day, man, you loyal to your home church. And how was your experience on religion, and how did that inform, you dealing with Isaiah, Andre, and Gabriel?
Hey, bro, shout out to Zion Hill and St. John's, our sister church. Hey, bro, I had no choice, right? That's how we grew up. The church was across the street from us, across the road from us. And, all the different families in the community went to the church. We call them like the 5 or 6 mob families, right? but that's the backbone of the community, of the area. And we had to go to church on Sundays, right?
That's some old school stuff. You walk to church.
You walk the church, dog. Walk the church. And, hey, bro, I enjoyed it.
Was you barefooted?
Nah, I wasn't, but I did have a little satchel. Nah. Nah, man, but it was a community thing, and it still is, and the churches are still going on, and the churches, the smaller country churches are struggling a little bit, I believe, just like anything else, but it instilled a love for community, still a love for my people that I grew up with, and Reverend Johnson was there, man, who knows, 50 years, 40 years or something, and that's my foundation, as far as, dealing with faith and spirituality. And we'll talk about religion versus faith. And then you grow up and you see, so I carry that with me. Whatever good about me ain't all about me. A lot of it was instilled from the community, from the church, from my grandmother, from my mother as well, obviously. And so, dog, I love it. And so I wanted to bring that with my children, right? And so when we left the area, it's a little bit different. So now we go to church with people we don't know, and we go to different churches. And me and my ex-wife wasn't equally yoked, and as far as that's concerned, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's one thing to, make the kids get dressed and go to church. I didn't want to have to fight my spouse about going. You know what I mean?
Right.
You with me or you not? And I'm not gonna keep arguing about this. But anyway, man, that just provided the foundation for who I am, man, and I love it. You get a little bit older. You still love and appreciate them, but you still have to grow and move on sometimes. But you never forget where you come from. You feel me?
Two questions. The last one just came out, right? I'm gonna ask the first question first. I hope I remember the second one. But okay, I get it. You and your spouse didn't see eye to eye when it came to religion. But what did you teach your boys about religion in lieu of that? And then the second question is, you grow up and you move on. What does that mean?
Okay, right. So there was some cultural issues, you know what I mean, within our situation where she wanted to go to a so-called mixed church. Okay. Right. And I said, why? I just want to go to a diverse church. And I really got no answer from that, right? And I said, well, why all the diverse churches is white churches but black folks visit, right? I don't see white folks coming to our black churches. So I grew up in the black church, the black preacher, black denomination, and that's what I'm used to. And that's what I'm going to seek. People always want to party with black folks, hang out, cultural appropriation, etc. But when it comes time to your salvation, they don't want to deal with a black pastor.
Come on now.
They say that's the most segregated hour in America.
Come on,
11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm like, hey, you provide alternatives, but you're not, you out here fussing with me, but you're not going out here and finding anything. You feel me? And so this is what I'm used to. This is what I like. So I tried different churches. I brought my kids along with me.
Okay.
And beyond the physical going to church, what I tried to do, not consistent, but try to do as much as I can is pray with them, and just pray with them. And that's something I still try to do to this day, but all my boys gone, 2 of them out the house, 1 of them about to leave the house. And so little stuff like that. And even as adults, man, that's something powerful, just being able to sit down and pray with your sons or daughters. And that's what I still try to do and ask them, do they pray?
I'm not letting you off the hook on the second part.
Oh.
When you say you get older and you move on, what does that mean?
So sometimes, man, it's you're never looking down on nobody at all, but you got to expand your horizons. You know what I mean? You got to grow. just like you grow in the world of formal education, right, versus career-wise, versus your spirituality, you know? And so it's no different than people in other communities. You know, you gotta grow and you gotta move on. You gotta see different things. And when we talk about being exposed to Islam and the nation, etc., that's a growth. I went to see Reverend Only too, you know, and so needing to hear more than one voice.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Got you.
And so Reverend Johnson was phenomenal, you know. But like, and he would even say, what'd he say? What Plu his brother say? I can only take you so far. What was that quote? Why?
Oh yeah, he would always say, man, you know, our understanding of the faith is we are what he called slave time preachers. That's what he said.
Oh,
we
wow.
slave time preachers. But that brought us out of our worst condition ever, you know. And so
Yes.
there's a place for it,
Yes.
you know. So don't, you know, you can come talk to me about what you learned at Virginia Union Theological School all you want to, you know, but don't discount that this faith we have brought us out of slavery.
Exactly.
Man, I think that is profound that he said that, because his acknowledgement of it,
Yeah,
but also knowing that this wasn't some slave time thinking Negro,
right.
that he was
Right.
a very active community person
Yeah.
that was very progressive.
So
You understand?
To
what I'm
my
saying?
father-in-law, shout
But-
out
yeah.
to my
But
father-in-law.
knew the
rest in
place of
peace.
religion as it related to that. I think that's powerful.
Yeah,
And-
that's exactly right. And
I just want to say this, and that states it how he acknowledged, and we acknowledge and love it, but we need to push it and take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And once you take it to the next level, that don't mean you disappear and never
Yeah.
come back and forget where you come from.
Right.
That's our responsibility.
And Joaquin Talik, I gotta say this before I let y'all jump in. So Joaquin and Talik were the first, you know, black people I knew that had names other than these European names that we have. I'm just being honest.
Right.
Everybody
And
else
real
had a
names.
different name like that, because you grew up here.
Right.
It's almost a United Nations in Charlottesville. I know Greer Elementary School was.
yeah, it was. It still is.
I went to
Greer still
school
is.
with like even in J-Town in my neighborhood, having lived there for my first 17 years, I had a Cambodian that lived next door. There was a Korean guy over here.
Oh yeah.
There was some guy from Costa Rica up the street. It
Commonwealth
was
Drive.
very international over there,
Well,
right?
well, and Charlottesville is a main
Re-
hub for
It
international
is.
rescue.
The state, as identified by the State
RRC.
Department.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
so y'all were the first black people that I knew that had these names, and
At birth.
quietly,
At birth,
yeah, quietly, I was very curious about it, you know, when I first met you. And then eventually, I don't know when it was, but I've asked you about that before.
Yeah,
Before we got woke.
yeah.
And I think you told me about, because I know y'all's middle names, right?
Mhm.
And I think you told me something about Malcolm X.
Yeah.
And your father gave y'all, and I was like, I didn't even know who Malcolm X was. But it was always intriguing to me when I heard names. I don't know why, but it was
Yeah.
always intriguing to me when I heard those names. And then when we get into high school, I probably learned more about 5% stuff and Islam through Brand Nubians, and that was
Music.
when I made a
Right.
connection more about y'all's father naming y'all. So my question is, that's a very mixed bag. Your dad, you know, gave y'all these Islamic names or African names, and then your mom being into Catholicism, but also me knowing that she has a history with the Panthers and all of that. What does that look like in terms of y'all's faith and how y'all processed all of that and internalized religion and spirituality?
For me, and I'll go first. It's I think that's the beauty of it. You talk about diversity. That was a diversity of thought right there.
Yeah.
You know, we got these names because at the time our parents were heavily involved in the Black Panther movement here in Charlottesville. And so as we were born in 1971, 73, you know, my daddy was like, nah, I ain't giving you no name. You know, I ain't gonna name you Michael or whatever, Michael Anthony. I think that's what, you know, was the thought at first. Nah, you're gonna have some African names. And so I think a big part of that was when you look at what Muhammad Ali represented at that time in the 60s, and Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar represented at the time. So my dad was like, this is what you're going to be. And he told us, man, I remember my first day going to school. He was like, listen, let me tell you something before you go in there. He said, don't you ever let nobody call you something else if you don't give them permission. He said, don't you let them folks change your name to anything. Your name is Waki, and you always stand on that. And so I just remember, and now I think, I'm like, wow, he taking that way too serious.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But when I understand, as I got older, I understand the context of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and how they would want to be disrespectful and call him Lou Alcindor.
Right.
You know, they want to call him Cassius Clay instead of Muhammad Ali. It was a way of being disrespectful. So now I understand he's bringing that thought to having this conversation with me. You know, and so, you know, my mom, you know, they went to St. Margaret Mary's, which was a Catholic church for the black people. And my mom been going there since the 50s.
That's here in the Charlottesville area?
It was. That's a whole nother story. They tore that down. It was right where on the corner of Forest Street and Concord Avenue where the apartments are. That's where the black Catholic church was. I was sitting there
trying to figure out, now, how did Miss Lottie become a Catholic in Charlottesville? Like, because it's so segregated. You know what I'm saying?
And they put the church smack dab on the middle on Forest Street. And if you handing out cookies and red Kool-Aid, you won't get some black members.
And they're the black was it a black priest?
Yeah. Black father. And,
so
you know, that's what they call
Stallings type stuff.
Yeah, you know. And so, but then when they were quote unquote integrated, like you said, the white folks didn't come to the black church. They tore down the black Catholic church, and then my mom, my grandma, and aunt, all them, they went to Holy Comforter. And my mom still go there every week.
Wow.
70 years old. She still go to Holy Comforter Church right on First Street, a couple blocks from here.
Wow.
That's where she goes. And so, so we had a mix from the very beginning. And because we had that mix, my mom was never, my parents was never, you going to this church, you going every Sunday, you going all this. Let's just model some behavior. And when they get older, they will choose back to Reverend Only. At 16, 15, 16, 17, I see Reverend Only and I'm like, okay, First Baptist. That's the church I became a member of. That's the church I got baptized at. That is my home church here in Charlottesville, where I've been affiliated with since I was a teenager.
Okay.
And so that's how that all came about, you know, during that time. So, and now, you know, and I'll get into it later, but now I just have a whole mixture of ideas about faith and religion because I ended up at a religious school like Virginia Union. I had no idea it was that type of school, but you know, next thing you know, I'm taking all of these, you know, religion and philosophy classes with my man, Dr. Chapman. Shout out Dr. Chapman.
And shout out to Union Theological. I mean, Union has long been one of the most respected theological schools in the country as an HBCU.
Exactly. And I had no idea I was going there. I'm just following behind John. I had no idea what the school represented.
We got to go to chapel?
Yeah, we got to go to chapel. Tripping. You know, and so that's, you know, that and so through that, and then once I got in that environment and I start to study different religions, well then they go back to what you say, 6 and 1 is 7, 3 and 4 is 7, 5 and 2 is 7, you know?
Right.
And so that once I understood that concept, then I have just created
his own religion.
My own, what I call Wakiism. Yeah, what I call Wakiism.
It's a simple quote that says, the truth is one, but the paths are many.
Right.
That's true. You know? And I think too, that we need to understand the difference between what is true and what is truth. You know, what is true can change. Truth does not change. Mm-hmm. Truth, you know,
Elaborate.
5 plus 2 is 7. That's the truth. Sunrise in the east, set in the west. That's the truth. All right. We are here at the Code building. That is true. But 4 hours from now, that's not going to be true. We'll be somewhere else. Mm-hmm. You know, So there's a difference between what is true and what is true. And I think, as we start to talk about these faiths and religions and philosophy, we need to really settle in on what is true and not get lost on what may be true for now, So that's what I say about that.
Yes, sir.
Get at it, bro. Get at it.
Well, man, I don't know. Ever since I was just a little guy, man, I always, I know as far as, well, is that true or true?
Well, it's true because I used to be a little guy too.
No, when I don't know. I always like going to church, man. When I was a little guy, and it was just something about it. I really was at the time. It was probably the music then. At that time, but then I went through my period of I wasn't consistent when we were younger. Just like Joaquin said earlier, my mom didn't really let her, didn't send us this way or that way. So we, I went back and forth to, the Catholic church with my grandmother, and then I went to church with my father. And then what happened was, of course, I was with these guys with Reverend Only, and that's where I got baptized at. And of course, when Reverend Only deceased, he was kind of like in just like limbo, because he was really just teaching us, and he was teaching us in a way that we was able to receive it as some young cats, and then later on was introduced to Islam. And I rock with Islam a long time. I consider a long time. It was several years. And, I was going back and forth to the mosque in Atlanta and stuff with Brother James and stuff. And, then it was kind of consistent. And then I went like every once in a while. And I know when I met my wife, of course, when she was my girlfriend or whatever, or when I met her, we had, regular dialogue, talking about religion and stuff. And I was Islam, boom, all day long, right? And, I of course, had my season with being a Christian and then Islam. And so what happened was, when we was talking and then we started getting serious, my wife was like, "Look, I cannot date you if you're a Muslim, So, but at the same time, I really wasn't.
You went all in.
I really wasn't. No. But I really wasn't going to the mosque as much.
Right.
So when you're not getting fed either or, you're going to get weakened, And so I was like, we had these long conversations on the phone about religion. And she, then she started explaining and teaching me some stories and stuff like that. And so, eventually, I was, dwindling down Islam and increasing my, Christianity. And I started going to church with her. I was enjoying that pastor.
Was this in Griffin?
This was in Griffin.
What was the name of the church in Griffin, Chief?
Mount Pleasant Baptist Church.
Shout out Mount Pleasant.
That's right, Mount Pleasant Baptist Church.
Griffin, GA.
So that's what we went to church, and we went for several years there. And after that, our pastor was getting older, and he wasn't. I knew he could teach because I experienced it when he was younger. But what happened was he started trying to satisfy the older community, and he wasn't bringing it like I wanted to be taught,
Right.
And so I was like, I'm like, when he ready to reach his peak, I'm ready for I'm ready to get fed. And then he go into closing it out because everybody ready to go. He only preached 5 minutes. I'm like,
man, the game coming on, man.
Yeah. So that was like, So then what happened? I was around all these business young cats, and we was talking about we was talking about religion. And I was like, man, these young cats, man, they pretty sharp, man. They like 20, 22, 23
You
years
talking about
old.
me and James?
No, sir.
No, sir.
And so these guys, I was in Primerica at the time, and these guys, they were young, and I was floored because I never ever experienced seeing some young black men, 21, 22 years old, notice like scriptures off the top of their head. That was just fascinating to me. And I was like, man, how you guys do that? And then they told me what church they went to. I was like, I ain't going there like that, right? And so because the church had a bad name, right? So then what happened was, I was like, I was admiring these guys as businessmen, and I got to learn, I got to know who they were. And I said, man, these dudes is not like they saying about this church, right? And so eventually I was like, yo, what church you go to? And they said, we go to World Changers. I was like, Creflo? Like that? I was like, and then I started asking them questions and stuff. And I was talking bad about Creflo and stuff like that at the time. And, it was just one of those things. You hear so much, and then you start talking. And I never even experienced it. And so I went to church with them. And then I was like, yo.
Nothing like what it was.
Nothing.
The
like
rumors or
everything
whatever,
they
the
saying,
bad
I'm
mouth
like,
somebody
why are they like,
Hey,
yeah. So I was floored. So anyway, I just went in and I watched, I listened, and I came back home. I was like, baby, you gotta go to church with me. And she was like,
wow.
I'm not going over there. I said, all right, cool. So literally,
Your turn to be the influence.
yeah.
Huh?
So
She like,
literally,
you ain't give an ultimatum, bro.
no. So what? No, listen, no. But I wanted you to come because you wanted to be there.
Got you.
I didn't want you to come because I'm influenced you to be there, right? So what happened was, I went to church literally probably 2 years. I went to church 2 years by myself. I went, at that time, Pastor had 3 services, right? So I used to go to 8 o'clock in the morning service, right? And then when I got out of church, it was probably like 10. I went home, went to church with my family, my wife, my son, and we went to church in Griffin. So I used to go to church for like 2 years, consistently going to both churches because I was getting fed over here and I wasn't getting quite fed.
Supporting your wife.
And I was supporting, I wanted to be there with the family. So I didn't want to separate. So what happened was, she started seeing me change. Like, I'm the one now, I'm quoting scriptures off the top of my head. I'm, rallying around. I'm elevating the family as far as spirituality.
Faith and religion.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm talking the talk and I'm walking the walk. And like, all of a sudden that stuff, I'm assuming, started to be extremely attractive to her. And she was like, I'm gonna go. You know what I mean? And I was like, and when she went, I was like, what you think? She was like, because what happens is you get, it's a mega church. And so really it's shocking because it's so many people. At that time, man, it was like 10,000 people in the congregation. And you go from having less than 100 people to being around. First of all, you're going to be staring and people watching. And you may not even be paying attention, because there's so much going on. But then the how well organized they are, how everything is in sync, how professional, like everything from in the parking lot to going in the building, everything is on point, clean, crisp, and there's no black, late, all us know. It's just everything is crisp.
Black, no,
I want to say something else. Right. And so that's pretty much what happened as far as me. And we've been going ever since. And it's probably close to 15, 20 years we've been going to service.
Hey, man, look, we got the resident Jonah, our resident pastor over here.
Who?
Core, C. Evans.
Man, please.
Yeah. What was your nickname at State, Core? What they call you?
It's Corey X, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
So-
I was just thinking about that. If you were to go back and ask people if they know me at Virginia State, that's what they know me as. Because
Yeah.
I was also the managing editor of the campus newspaper, and that was my name. You know what I'm saying? They would read me. I would walk around campus, get on debates with people from different faiths. That was an amazing experience. But my earliest recollections of religion, y'all gonna laugh at this, man, was getting on the vacation Bible school bus. You know, they used to drive the bus through the neighborhood and pick the kids up.
yeah.
Those, I don't know what they call those. What do you call
Si-
people that go on a religious,
Missionaries or something.
those
like that.
missionaries? It
Yeah.
was white guys that come in Jefferson Town with a big bus.
Similar
Hey,
to the
y'all want
Catholic
some
thing.
paper airplanes and
Yeah.
popsicles? We was like, bet, Mom, can we go? Yeah, you get on the bus.
Cookies and
You
Kool-Aid.
get over there and they let you play with the airplanes and stuff for a while. Then they pull the Bible out. You like, yo, they tricked us. You know what I'm saying? But that was my first recollection of religion because they was trying to teach us the Bible. And I remember at that time I was so young I couldn't even read. And I just remember being lost about reading. Like, oh, I don't know what they talking about. Everybody's reading. But my mother, man, you know, of course, being a young mother, we talked about our parents being teenage mothers. And I remember my mother used to party when at my youngest recollections of it. And then she just stopped when she was 26 and just started going to church every Sunday. And at the time, she didn't have a car, so she couldn't take us because she was getting a ride with someone probably, right, to church.
Mhm.
So we were just at home. But later on, when I asked her, you know, why she stopped hanging out and all of that, to something I remember one thing because I remember she used to drink, or when I asked her why she stopped drinking, because I think we started sipping around that joint or what she had in the house. But at 26, she just totally, I think from 26 to now, I don't even know if she missed a Sunday going to church. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what she would always do is, she's not the type of person that said, believe this, do that, but she will always talk about the Lord.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So I've always known the Lord was important. And I saw her in terms of a walk. I was telling my wife the other day, man, I don't think, and this was just a random conversation we were having, but reflecting on Mother's Day, I don't know anybody that could say my mom mistreated them or was mean to them. Y'all kind of know my mom's disposition,
Right,
just
yeah.
always caught us just like
Quiet.
even killed.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, and then in times where I was being bad or getting in trouble, or, you know, she would remind us about the Lord, right? Or that's God's work, just in her normal talk. Oh, the Lord, God, you know all them sayings we get,
Yeah.
right? And then, but there were other people I interacted with. I was a very curious child, right? But there were other Christians that I would interact with that would say, I would ask questions because I had a lot of questions. And they would say stuff like, and some of the questions I had as an 8, 9-year-old were perplexing questions. Like one time I remember asking this guy that was friends with my stepfather at the time, and he was a real religious dude trying to teach me about the Bible. I was like, well, where did God come from? Guess what he said? Don't question the Lord.
Oh, right.
Right.
And even at 9,
This ain't
I
gonna
thought that
turned
was
you
the
off.
dumbest thing I ever heard
Yeah,
in my
that turned
life.
you off.
Do
This
you
ain't
understand
gonna
what I'm
work for me.
saying? And then I remember going to church and my mom telling me and Rodney to get prayed for. And you know, they were putting the oil on your head and praying for people, and people was getting happy and all that. And nothing happened when I went up there. I was like, I was kind of waiting to get happy or something. You know what I'm saying?
Wanting to get that feeling.
Then I was like, it made me wonder, are these people serious or I didn't know. And then my aunt, who's super religious, rest in peace, Aunt Frances, lived in the valley. She was even more religious than my mom, but always take us. We used to hate going to visit her because you had to go to church. If you watched TV after 7 o'clock, it had to be the 700 Club that was on TV. She was staunchly religious, so
Yeah.
she took us to church, me and Rodney, and they made all the kids get up and sing a song. Well, I didn't know any songs. You know, we didn't know any songs. So Rodney got up before me, and he was older, I think he cranked out an R&B joint. This church is up, right? That was just a funny story. But so ironically, I'm the only one out of me and my brothers that's never been baptized in a church.
Wow. Hey, bro. Yeah.
You know, and all of them took the path to Christianity in different times in their life as teenagers. I was the only one never baptized, and there was no, you know, other than my mom not making me do that. And I think she kind of had the philosophy that, again, I've heard something similar, like find your own way or whatever, but she taught morality lessons, ethics lessons, and all of that stuff. So when I got into high school and heard at 17, 18, 16, 17, I don't know who it was.
Stanley Woodfolk?
Stanley was, and then my uncle, Uncle Bo. As much as
Bo.
we used to party over there and all of that, really religious brother.
Shout out to Uncle Bo.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Stayed in his Bible and was a deeply spiritual man. You know what I'm saying? But
Corey, you never went to church in Greenwood? Your mom
yeah,
never went to church
I always
there?
went to church when it was Easter, and I was one of those people they talked about, like, you showing up now because it's Easter.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff. But yeah, she used to take us to church. But I'm saying there was no requirement, hey, you going to church every week, you doing this or that, right? And so when I got exposed to knowledge, and I've always been somebody concerned about racism from the time I was a small child, dealing with racism in elementary school, right? And to particularly for me, as I grew into teenager years and all that, and I did like Reverend Only. I knew all of y'all were going, and then I was kind of jealous because all y'all was going in there. And they, just so y'all know, they was going to First Baptist, but they was also looking at the girls in First Baptist and all of that stuff. Because I heard the stories. You know? But anyway, Reverend Only came to speak. Y'all remember when Reverend Only came to Albemarle?
No, I don't.
He spoke at Black History Month once at Albemarle. That was my first time hearing.
Yes,
I was like, oh, wow. You know, very powerful man. And I remember he had on the African garb a little bit and all of that, and I was attracted to that.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I needed, so then I heard a tape or something as James did a Minister Farrakhan. But when I went to JUCO to play baseball, it was these brothers from New Jersey, man. And we were just chilling one day. He was like, hey, man, and to be honest, I was on my way to class, and he was like, hey, man, you know, we were smoking back then. He was like, hey, man, come go and hit one before class or whatever. And I was like, all right. Went over there, and he was cooking. He got the munchies, and he was like, hey, man, I'm going to cook some breakfast.
I'm about to say cooking
what?
Like,
he made some eggs. He made some toast. I was like, you ain't got no sausage or bacon? He was like, man, I don't eat that, no pork, man. What are you talking about? Right? He was like, man, this come from slave master food. And I was so curious. What are you talking about? He was like, man, you don't know about all this stuff? You didn't know God was black? I was like, God is black? What are you talking about? God ain't got no color. That's what everybody told me, right? I mean, or whatever. Yeah. Even now, it's not about a color, but his understanding at that time, that's what it was.
No, I get it.
So he was a 5%er from Newark. I mean, Teaneck, New Jersey. And he was cool. He was on the basketball team. And so I would actually go to this dude like he was my little sage. And then there was this another cat from D.C. That while y'all were here meeting Elisham and them, this is what was happening to me.
Yeah.
So I met this cat from D.C. that used to listen to tapes. And he brought Message to the Black Man to his apartment. And I was up there. We were shooting dice or something on Tuesday night, we used to watch the fights and have a dice game every Tuesday night in college, right? And he brought the book and I saw it and I read it in one night. I read that book and I read it all in one night. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on? So then when I get home, I'm trying to figure out how to be a 5%er. I'm calling myself a 5%er.
Right.
And I was this close to going home to New Jersey with him because of that for the summer. And then I get with y'all. It's like, hey, man, they got these Muslim brothers around here. And then we all was meeting and learning from it. And that was the beginning of my journey into accepting Islam. But for me, it wasn't about the title of the name. I needed a mix between religion and revolution.
Right.
Because I wanted to be an activist. And so that was the faith that I saw that. And just to be frank, for me, I didn't see that in Christianity. I didn't see an emphasis on that. I didn't see a focus on that, and I didn't see that nurturing people the condition of our people. And so, as James talked about, I ended up joining and meeting some high-level officials and people in there and excelling, and ended up becoming a student minister, right? And that was my story on faith. But overall, let me tell you what I taught my sons. I'm with y'all. That being said, I didn't teach my sons to follow my pathway, and it was intentional. And sometimes I've questioned myself about it at times.
Right, me too.
Because I went through some stuff in there. Right, being a political movement is not just like going to church every weekend.
Yeah.
It's not. There's a lot of requirements, right? And church has its politics, but it's a whole nother ball game at that level of being in one of the most feared, popular, controversial movements in the country. And so I said, I didn't know if I wanted them, to be honest, to grow up in that community, because I just didn't know. I was just sometimes at odds with it myself and ended up not being as active as I was, right?
Right.
And so, but I was adamant on teaching the lessons. And Joaquin gonna know this quote when I say it, because I read it about Gandhi. There's a quote, even though come to find out later, Gandhi, said some racist stuff, as a lot of people did. But he said, I have come to the conclusion, after traveling to as many places as I could travel and speaking with as many people as I could speak, that all religions are true and all religions have error in them. And while I hold fast by my own, I will hold others just as dear. And the error is not in the teaching of the religion, it's in our differences about the rituals associated. You ain't get baptized. Y'all take Shahada. Y'all don't take Shahada. Y'all don't get baptized. Y'all don't do this. You don't go through the Catholic thing. All of that stuff is communion. All of that stuff is so superficial.
The rituals.
Because the rituals are to teach you a greater truth. And there is but one truth, in my opinion.
Right.
And it's all surrounding about treating people like you want to be treated and trying to live as best you can to be a righteous individual. All the other stuff is human politics to me.
Right.
And so that was my journey. You know what I'm saying? And still to this day with my sons, having not exposed them to that, they got every teaching I ever got from any religion.
Yeah.
The best of all of them,
Yep.
you got those lessons, and I would tell you where it came from. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And so now it's a beautiful thing to me is that, Haki was the one that was really inquisitive about my journey. But he didn't join, but he studies. Amir at 21 started asking me about Islam, and I bought him a Quran, and now he practices. He tries to practice. He's growing in his practice. Jeremiah's more of my Waki person. Just got a lot of philosophies, but he's one of the most righteous
fellas.
people I know,
Yeah,
without
good
me
man.
having exposed them to it. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm happy with where they are. But the bottom line is, I wanted them to know that it's important for you to have a belief system to lean on. Because there are going to be some times in your life where some stuff come up and you're not going to have no answers, and I ain't got none for you.
Yeah.
It's all about your connection to this universal spirit and energy, and you knowing that you didn't put yourself here, and you relying and trusting in that energy to get you through. And that was the most important thing for me to make sure that they know. Because there's some things that can shake you up in life, ain't nobody got no answers for.
That's
and if you think you just by yourself and there's no other power and force and working, then you're going to be someone that's ready to kill themselves or engage in some destructive behaviors to cope. But there is a power that governs this, and I don't care what we call it, because we got caught up in a lot of, through slavery, people bringing us belief systems. And I don't care if it's ancient African religions. I don't care if it's Catholicism. You better rely on the best of that and know that you didn't put yourself here to be a backbone of your life.
Yeah.
That was sort of where I was. And I know this is a different type of episode for the audience where we didn't go a lot of back and forth, but I do think it's important for us to have shared, because a lot of the beliefs and things we talk about on this podcast comes from our individual faith and our individual belief about stuff. So for me, I can absorb and digest true, good, righteous religion. I don't care what you call it. I'm down. You understand what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
I'm down with that.
You know, one thing that I remember when I was at Virginia Union in Dr. Chapman's class, we had an assignment. And the assignment was come up with your own religion. And it was when he first said it, I'm like, how you just gonna come up with your own? And then it dawned on me. Yeah, you can. He's like, you just come up with some principles, you come up with some rituals, and if you get enough people to follow you, you got one.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just fascinating to me. And then you start thinking about whether it's Mormons and John Smith and whoever, you know, you're like, whoa, this pretty much is how it's been done.
Yeah.
You know, and that was fascinating. So from that moment, I'm just like, okay, if I could just come up with one, if I can get 1 million people to believe the stuff I'm talking, then I got Waukesism, so to speak, you know? And so I said, all right, let's just start to make sure we taking the principles of all of this stuff and applying it to our lives. And, you know, the one message we always heard is, you know, hey, if you got a muddy glass of water and a clean glass of water, you don't have to tell anyone which one to drink from. You just hold them up. They will naturally know which one to choose from.
Yeah.
Clean,
And so I
present.
said, I'm going to live my life as the clean glass of water so that people, when they see me, and I just said this the other day, you're responsible for the people you bring to the faith, but you're also responsible for the people you turn away. Because if they see you as a hypocrite, they ain't got no reason to start believing in and following and whatever you're talking about. And so I want to live my life as the clear glass of water for people to look at. And so I have a ministry. Yeah, I got one. I've been coaching for 20 years, you know, and when I'm interacting with my players, all I'm doing is teaching them the character traits and the principles of all of these faiths and religions.
Yeah, that's it.
Through
Right.
sports.
That's it. You don't have to call it anything. You don't have to call. And I remember, you know, from my experience, you know, when we got introduced to Islam and all that stuff, somebody asked me, probably wasn't even that long ago. They said, what religion are you? And I said to them, I said, well, I call myself a Christian, but most Christians wouldn't call me Christian. You know, because I have some fundamental things about Christianity that I don't believe. And so I call myself a Christian, but Christians wouldn't call me Christian. You know, the diehards. I tell people all the time, Islam taught me how to be a Christian. Taught me how to be a Christian. Because, like you said, it has some requirements when you participate in that are a little different. But what it taught me is how to apply these Christian principles to my life. And any other principle that I chose.
Hey,
you know?
look, I'm gonna take a preacher moment right here because y'all, you know, I got the spirit. Listen, man,
Let it go.
religion is a way of life. Religion is not what you believe. Religion is how you live your life. It's an action verb. Religion is action, right? And the model of it, I remember in the mosque we learned when you invite yourself into somebody's company, you are the mosque. This is God's temple, not the building where we go to pay service.
Right. Come on now.
You are the temple. You are the God. You are the child of God. So if you're his child, the building is just a place you go to practice, just like you going to shoot a jumper. But you are the temple. So if you into my company and I invite you in, I'm inviting you to the mosque. So how I treat you is my religion. Right?
Come on,
and
man.
we always say in this world, how is life treating you? We giving power to something else. My question is, how are you treating life? Right?
Yeah.
And that's the power. So let me say something. And I just want to be clear about this because our people are dying in faith right now. And we've never been more backwards as a people in terms of materialism, sexism, and the things that we are not paying most important to. When we talk about the one thing I would say coming from Africa to over here, that what happened to black people as slaves is they separated science from religion. They separated science from religion because everything you see, when you see the season change on schedule, and you see the sun and our calendar being moved by the moon, and you see these natural things in animals, all of that is God's work. It ain't just the physical creation and biology and chemistry. That's all him. Right? It's not just what the word that was left in the book. So for us, we got to understand that when we say submit to God and do everything God says, all you doing is submitting to the universal flow of what was set up for you.
Right.
You're not, and we get drunk with, I'm submitting to Jesus. And no, you are, but because Jesus understood how this creation worked and he aligned his life to how it worked so he can best get out of it what a human can get when you do that. And that's all any product. That's what Muhammad was asking you to do. That's what Jesus was asking you to do. That's what Moses was asking you to do. Don't create another game plan when the game plan is already
That's right.
here.
Come on now.
Lock onto the flow, multiply, replenish the earth, multiply, use what you see and create better, improve upon it. And if we just do that and let it go all the labels away, we won't be out here arguing over foolishness and using religion, as Karl Marx said, as an opiate for the masses. It's just a get high, then we get back to our child trifling ways instead of building a reality for ourselves and our children and the world that's sustainable forever. And to me, that's what religion is locking yourself into, we don't buy products and it says manufacturer suggested usage. If you use it other than that, you're messing up the product. So this world comes with a suggested usage for human beings. And you can either lock into the flow or not. And if you don't lock into it, you're going to be sad, depressed, and coping with the things that are put here as opposed to locking into that universal law that's going to make all of us happy in that peace. And I'm sorry, it was long, but I had to.
That's why you got the last word.
That's the end of the show.
That was good.
Sir.
That's good.
It's the any other final words, man?
I just always wanted to, kind of would reflect on what you were saying, just be able to put some in my son to a higher power, my family, so we could pray, believe. When times get difficult, they know where to go, right? They know where to go, and that's so important because, man, when you don't have it in you, it's real difficult when you hit that times, and you might wipe yourself out. So hey, shout out Christianity.
Shout out to Christianity for sure. Hey, listen, that's the true thing. I know I want my final message to be, I don't care what we call it. If you practicing the best of what that faith says you should practice, you my brother, I love you and I love what you're doing.
Absolutely.
That's how I feel about it. So it's the B2M Crew podcast. We're here at the Code Building Broadcasting, brought to you by the Code Building and Win Productions. Chopping up with about spirituality, religion, and faith. If you want to contact Win Productions Studio, 754-225-2805. Down in the ATL, that's 754-225-2805. And Joaquin, you got something powerful to take us out with, man?
As always, great quote of Frederick Douglass. It is easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men. Peace.
Peace.
And I won't stop until I'm winning. I'ma show them how true and independent get it. Whole game changed by the time I'm finished with it. We about to get this business handled in a minute. And I won't stop until I'm winning. They don't want me in the office.